here is, in hearing the morning speakers, it feels very much at home. So thank you, Jean, for teeing this up so well. Also, I have these chairs at my house, so I really do feel like I'm sitting in my living room. The chairs are not in my living room, let's be honest. Okay, so this printer changed my life maybe 22 years ago, because I'm that old. One of the nice things I like about talking in DC is that I'm usually not the oldest person in the room, but this room is still maybe 22 years feels like ancient times to you. But it's a printer just like this changed my life. And how could a stupid $300 printer change my life? Well, 22 years ago, I had founded a company called Adaptive Path. Does anybody at all know that name? Yes. It used to be really important, right? Like it was one of the first user experience firms in the world. You've all heard of user experience, right? Okay, great. So the thing about Adaptive Path is that we were founded with 7 founders. 7 founders, which if you've ever started a startup, that's like a dumb number. So we've got a stupid printer and a dumb number of founders. And we argued 10 minutes at every partner meeting every Tuesday for 6 months. 6 months about whether to buy a stupid $300 printer. That's 28 person hours. That's the better part of a week for a $300 printer. And that experience, Adaptive Path, was this magical startup that we had done, and it was so impactful and really important. It was changing the world. It was all these great things. And yet the culture was really not supportive. We succeeded despite that. So it kicked off this sort of how do we do better than that? How do we improve? So I love the points that Jean made about investing most in our process improvement and how do we enable developers to move faster. And so that became a bit of a life mission for me and eventually my husband, who became my business partner in my last startup. So we wrote this book called Farther, Faster, and Far Less Drama. Who wants to live in a world that is where you can go farther, faster with less drama? Less drama? Anybody? I want less drama. And drama could be a stand-in for stress or bickering or bureaucracy or Congress or whatever your excuse is, all those excuses. And one of the things that we learned over time is that there's that Moore's Law, which is not Moore's Law. Jean always remembers these things. What's the law? The network effects law. Metcalf's law. Thank you. Metcalf's law of network effects. So this is a byproduct of Metcalf's law of network effects. That the more people you have involved in a system, the more relationships you have, and it's not like one-on-one. And I want to demonstrate to you how this works. So I need 4 volunteers to come up on stage. I promise this won't hurt. 1, 2, 2 more, 3, 4, 4. Great, come on up. Like I said, I promise this won't hurt. All right, so let's have you 3 stand together and you stand off for just a moment. And I want us all to count along as these 3 shake hands as if meeting each other for the first time. We're going to count the handshakes. That was 1, 2, 3. 3 people, 3 handshakes, nice and efficient. We're going to do the same thing again with 1 more person. Okay, now we're going to start all over. Count the handshakes as if meeting each other for the first time. You got 1, 2. You've got 3, 4. You've got 5, there's awkwardness, 6. You added 1 person and you doubled the number of handshakes. That's all, thank you so much. You added 1 person and you doubled the number of handshakes, and there's a formula, n times n minus 1 over 2. And this matters because people make decisions when, among other things, they stop talking. People stop talking when they feel understood. Not when you actually understand them, but when they perceive that they have been understood. When they perceive that they have been understood. And understanding happens between individual pairs of brains. So when you go from 3 pairs of brains to 6 pairs of brains, that's double the conversations to get to a decision. And when you get to 7, I don't even remember what the number is. It's some big dumb number of conversations there. It's 21 conversations to get people to agree to buy that $300 printer. So over time, as we kept examining this question of why is it so hard to go fast? Why is there so much drama? We uncovered these 4 problems, at least in this printer example. And the first one is we structured the decision as a consensus decision. The second is that we had too many people involved in the decision, and maybe the wrong people. Like, did everybody actually have to participate in that decision? We were focused on the output, not on the outcome, which is a theme you're hearing a lot about today. And finally, we each had a different starting point. So we needed to get from point A to point B, but not everybody was on the same point A. And so we ended up at different places. And so that set of thoughts is what led to this book. The book is called Farther, Faster, and Far Less Drama. How to reduce stress and make extraordinary progress wherever you lead, but you can replace the word stress with overwhelm, chaos, frustration, waste, indecision, friction, and bickering. And I had a much longer list of words, but they made me cut it down to something that could fit in one line. And in the book, we named what we're calling 4 leadership motions. So these are like, my husband's been doing Kung Fu for like 15 years. He's got 5 or 6 black belts, right? And so what he does are these repetitive motions that give him incredible power and strength. They call it a form or a kata, if you were a Japanese person. And these 4 leadership motions are similar, and I think of it kind of like a spinner on a board game, so that anytime you're stuck or you're in a rut or something's not working the way you want it to, you could just choose one of these 4 things, ask yourself a few questions, and move forward. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of these 4 things, and we're going to go really deep into the one that fits with balanced team, which is leverage the brains. Okay, so the first is Orient Honestly, and there are 2 parts to this. The first is asking yourself questions like, where are we now? Where are you? Where am I? Are we in the same place? Right? Where are we now? Because you need to know where everybody is, right? If you're trying to get from Denver to Albuquerque, but half your team thinks you're in Miami, and you give them directions, you're not going to get to Albuquerque together. So where are we now? Are we starting from the same place? And then what makes this situation, this moment, complicated? So what's the difficult part that makes this challenging? So there's this woman, Barbara Minto. She was one of the first women to graduate from Harvard Business School, and she was foundational to the way that McKinsey Consulting communicates. She developed the Minto Communication Pyramid, and it's profoundly influential, really influential for me in particular. And she starts all inquiry with situation, complication, question, and answer, SCQA. And what we're talking with Orient Honestly is situation plus complication. And the honestly part is about really inquiring for yourself about what inconvenient truth you are not yet admitting to yourself. So you really need to, this is not simple. This is not like, here's where we are, here's what's hard about it. You're like, here's where we are, here's what's hard about it, what am I missing? Right? So this is the first place where you need to align with folks. The next thing is value outcomes, and I chose a sailboat here because it's my favorite metaphor for valuing outcomes over plans. So you want to value the outcome over the plan. If I want to sail from here to that island over there, and this big shipping container boat comes in my way, my current plan is no longer valid because there's a surprise. Well, we live in a world, and you all work in jobs that are filled with surprises. So we need to be able to tack that sailboat while not losing the vision for where we're going. So we want to value the outcome more than we value our plans, more than we value the activities, more than we value the deliverables. So it's not that we don't value those things, it's just that we value the outcome more. We want to make durable decisions. And here my metaphor is Carhartts, which is why I chose a farmer and his jeans, right? We want decisions that can stand the friction that happens around them. So here, instead of going for consensus and trying to make the right decision or the perfect decision or a great decision, we want to make a decision that everyone can live with that gets us closer toward our point B. And if we change our frame and we start to think in that way and let go of complete agreement, let go of perfection, but instead look for good, orderly progress toward the outcome, we're going to get farther and have less drama, because a lot of the drama comes in the form of decision making. And this is the one we're going to dig into for the next little while. Leverage the brains. Leverage the brains. We want to include a small number of people because of Metcalf's law. We want to create cross-functional, cross-level, multi-ethnic, multi-gender, diverse, neurodiverse collaboration. So diversity in all of its forms improves outcomes. It is like all of the research is definitive. There's no question any longer. Diversity in your team creates more efficient, more effective outcomes. So how do you construct that diversity? And here I'm not just talking about the employee resource groups type of diversity, although that's a different talk that I love to give, so please hire me for that talk. And instead, what I want to talk about is structural diversity. Diversity across lines of authority, diversity across work group, and what we want is to have the right brains that have the right authority and knowledge in the room at the same time, doing the work together. So we're going to dig into that. Here we go. So for the rest of this, I'm going to assume that you're working Agile. Is anybody here not working in an Agile environment? I just want to be sensitive. Okay, I think of this as an inclusion. I saw a couple hands. This is an inclusion effort, right? We want to include you. But I'm going to assume that most of you are working Agile and that it's not always smooth. It can be pretty bumpy. I see some head nodding. Thank you for that validation. And that you would like to have a little bit less drama, because nobody likes drama. It is wasteful. It might be exciting, but let's keep it out of the office. Okay, now, anybody here a product owner? Okay. Okay. Anybody here work with product owners? Okay. So here's how I think product ownership sort of works, metaphorically speaking. You've got a whole bunch of developers, and you're the product owner. Not better, not worse, just different. But then there's the rest of the world. And it is the job of the product owner to manage the rest of the world so that the developers can move forward quickly and efficiently. How am I doing so far? Pretty close? Yep. Okay, good. So because there are so many of them and they're so varied, you erect some amount of barrier because you need to protect your developers from all of that stuff. And you become the doorway through which things get into the developer community, the developer team. All right? There's only one kind of, maybe two kinds of people who really like that job. The folks in this room are the ones who have a good heart and are going to burn out because, holy cow, I don't want that job. The other kind are the control freaks that you hate. So either you have good people who are going to get completely destroyed by the job, or you have not so good people who are completely unpleasant to work with. I don't think this is a recipe for a successful organization. I think that product ownership means one wringable neck. OWN, one wringable neck. What it means is that there's one person who's accountable so that if someone needs to get in trouble, it's going to be you. So I feel really bad for the good people in this audience who are stuck in that spot. So I won't ask you if this feels like you, because that might be a little too exposing. So basically, you swapped out waterfall and landed in the rapids. which doesn't feel so good sometimes. Okay, so what really creeped me out this morning is I looked at this picture, and the guy in the red helmet looks like my ex-husband. I'm like, oh my God, he's haunting me. All right, so in this case, leverage the brains means sharing ownership, and we call this balanced team. Now, balanced team hasn't gotten a ton of traction on the internet. People aren't like chatting about it on Twitter, but you can. And it's a mindset as much as a set of specific practices. And I'm going to describe balanced team in its most basic form, but your form might take slightly different shape. Like maybe you need a data sciences person on there. Maybe you don't even have a front end because you're all about search queries. Like, I don't know. You form your balanced team based on the requirements of your context. But I'm going to describe it as one product manager, one designer, one lead developer is one product team. And this is what Patrick Lencioni would call a first team. Your allegiance is to each other because together you make forward progress. Together you're doing the improvement kata. You're moving the team, the whole effort forward together toward that island that you're sailing for. So in my world, design is a broad term. I call that the empathizer in chief. They have certain responsibilities. The developer is a creative function, not just an execution function. And their job is much more generative than just execution-oriented. And product management becomes the scales of justice, right? Let's talk about what I mean by each one of those things. If you organize this way, by the way, what you get is a much more manageable stakeholder situation where you're dividing based on expertise. This, design person manages the input from a whole bunch of sources. The developer manages input from a whole bunch of sources, and so does the product leader. It's much more humane. All right, so design. What I would say is that someone needs to take responsibility for, at a professional career, the whole point of my job level, is to really get close to the customer and understand their needs, their pain points. That's why I call the design role an empathizer in chief. It's somebody's responsibility, even though everyone should be focused on the customer, someone needs to do this at a professional life's work level of expertise. The one important authority for this very vertical function, the one important authority is to prioritize those customer problems from the customer's point of view. And it doesn't matter whether your customer is a commercial consumer or, in your case, if it is a war fighter, right? We're still talking about the person who's going to receive the benefit of this piece of software. So they're going to integrate input from wherever anything that ends up manifesting in the design of the product, right? That's who you're going to get your input from. On the commercial side, it might include brand, it might include marketing, it might include social media, who knows? In your case, it's going to include somebody else. Developer, I said, raise high the roof beams. I think that's a quote from Franny and Zoe. I heard about it in a book from Buckminster Fuller. I don't know. Raise high the roof beams, carpenters. This says developers are not just about taking the first story in the backlog and writing the code or the test for that first story in the backlog. This means the developers are responsible for envisioning how might we solve this problem given the latest available technologies, which means that one of the things we count on, one of the responsibilities that we count on our developer community for, is out there scouting and figuring out what are the latest technologies, which is a real mind flip, right? That's a mind flip from what we were hearing about earlier today. So what we want is for hunting and gathering to be part of the developer life experience. So then finally, in this balanced team configuration, we have product management. And the product manager, they are a horizontal function. So design and development are very vertical functions. These are craftspeople. These are experts in their field, and their fields are vast. So it's vertical, but vertical within a very broad discipline. Product management, on the other hand, has to maintain the gestalt, holistic view of all of it everywhere, and as a service to the team, not as an entitled ownership place, but as a service to the team. The product manager's responsibility includes making difficult decisions with insufficient fact-based data in the face of absolutely conflicting priorities. So it might be the user experience person's job to know that this is the most important problem to the consumer, or to the customer, but the product manager might see that that important customer priority is completely at odds with the requirement or the business need or the congressional mandate. And someone has to reconcile those two things. And the question comes up, what is the right thing to do? And the answer is, I don't know, it depends. There's no fact basis for making that call, and someone's got to do it. That is a really hard job. So as a product owner, if you have that job and you're the one wringable neck, you feel often probably out on a limb. It probably feels very stressful and very uncomfortable. So one of the functions of dividing this ownership responsibility across multiple participants is to give you an informed, expert, professional peer group that you can really sit with and feel supported and feel in community. So I think a lot of the jobs that we all have are very, very lonely. And they're lonely because you feel like no one understands it, no one cares whether you're good or bad, and you will be held accountable in uncomfortable ways if you happen to make a mistake. And I would say that this entire setup of software development on behalf of the Department of Defense or whomever you work for, this is a recipe for failure. So what we need to do is stack the deck so that we can do these hard jobs, which, by the way, thank you so much for your service. Like, people do not understand how consequential and important what you do is. Like, I am really grateful for every one of you. So what I want is for you to have an environment where you have some of that psychological safety that we were just hearing about. So how do you create psychological safety? Well, you build a trusted partnership across your balanced team. And so now we want to leverage the brains. You've got 3 brains, your own and 2 others, and you can really wrestle some hard problems to the ground. So if you're in a position where you want to make a lot more progress, you want to get there much more quickly, and you want to stop all the stupid bickering over $300 printers, this is one of the ways to do it, is implement a balanced team. Make that balanced team diverse. Make sure that there's someone from the most important disciplines, not every discipline, but cluster those disciplines, create your peer group, make decisions together when it's too lonely to make them alone. So when I think about all of that and I look back at this just feels really sad and painful. And I don't want you to live sad, painful lives. I want you to live delighted, inspired, alive, efficient, flow-filled lives. We heard about Mahali Csikszentmihalyi. Like, this idea of flow is doing the hardest possible thing that you are really good at and getting there really fast and efficiently, and that is the most satisfying thing that I think a professional can do, is take on the hardest problems at the edge of your capability with a team of people locked arm in arm accomplishing something important. There is nothing like that. I believe that this is a better way to create your team of teams. I believe this is the unit that you can then replicate in the Jeff Bezos 2 pizza style, right, to get where you need to go. So I'm now in the summary wrap-up phase. What I've talked about here is that we want to encourage leadership rather than ownership. So it's not about hoarding responsibilities and doing them yourself. It's about leading together arm in arm. That means it's also about collaboration rather than heroism. There's for a while, it's kind of faded, but for a while there was this trend in Silicon Valley to hire what they called 10Xers. Woo, a 10X developer. They're going to deliver 10 times more value than anybody else. You're like, no, I mean, I have expletives for that. No way. No way. I don't want heroes. What I want are collaborators that are going to make the work environment more effective for everyone so that we can glide forward together as quickly as possible. The problems that we're trying to solve are hard enough already. I don't want my organization to be another one. All right. Kindness, not niceness. Nice says, I'm afraid to tell you the hard thing because I don't want to hurt your feelings. Kindness says, I'm going to tell you the hard thing because I believe you can handle it. And I'm going to tell you the hard thing, even if it's about our relationship or about you, because I want you and I believe you can improve, and I believe we can improve together, and maybe you're going to give me the feedback that's going to help me improve, and it turns out that it's my problem anyway. That takes courage. It takes trust. It takes psychological safety. So in order to create psychological safety, we think about kindness rather than niceness. Nice hides the problems. Kindness addresses the problems with love. Addresses the problem with love. That means, so these all connect together. You can see how one sort of leads to the next. So that means we're not hoarding or hiding. We are being transparent. We're sharing. That requires trust, respect, and accountability. So one of the best management books I've ever read is Extreme Programming Explained, second edition, not the first, with the green border, not the white border. It was written by a gentleman named Kent Beck, who was one of the grandfathers of the kind of software development practice that kind of we're talking about today. And his wife, who was an organizational psychologist. And together, they explain how trust, respect, accountability, these values underlie the practices. So we often learn the practices of Agile first, and we forget to learn about the values of Agile, but the values of Agile are what makes it work. So, trust, respect, and accountability over competition and hiding things and building fiefdoms. So, and of course, we want to build one leadership team, not one wringable neck. So when I think about, what has it been in the Agile, specifically XP world that has enriched my life so much that this book, the book that we wrote, we apply this, my husband and I worked together at a company called Pivotal Software. And we apply all of these principles in raising our family, in managing our home, in how to get my neurodiverse son ready for college. These principles apply broadly. So it's wherever you lead, if you orient honestly, value the outcomes, leverage the brains, and make decisions that last, you're going to get where you want to go with a lot less hassle. And you're going to have a much more rewarding life experience, whether that life experience happens to be in mission-critical software for the Department of Defense or how to get your neurodiverse kid into the college that he wants. So the book site's not up yet, but the book is available for pre-order, farther, faster, and far less drama. I would encourage you to pre-order it from your independent bookseller, but if you need to do an Amazon link right now, I'm not gonna be sad. And the book comes out in April of 2023. So that is all I've got for you. Thank you so much.